There's two wind monitors hanging up in the sky, and there's a bunch of gear. This is cool because I'm finding out that these guys are hang gliding and they're launching from the world-class steamboat ski lifts. They need a driver. My job is to film, drive them up, launch them off, and film the descent, the landing. We'll be launching at about 11,000 feet. One thing that I've learned about hang gliders, one hang glider is the paraglider, and that's got a parachute on it that you really don't want to have to use. Then you've got the wing glider, and you always have to worry about biplanes cruising by. Biplanes can be very scary at 11, 12, 13,000 feet. Hang gliding is the cheapest way to fly. From what I saw, it definitely takes nerves of steel. So once you run off the mountainside and launch, you start catching the hot geothermal currents. And you cruise those hot geothermal currents over your landing site. Cruising around your landing site is very important because that's where you're gonna land when you run out of hot air. It's a nice, thick, wet, grassy field. The cool thing about hang gliding is there's not too many regulations on it yet. For $5,000, I think it's a really cool hobby. On the big picture GPS grid 2627 is what we're doing. Point of exploration. That we're going snorkeling and swimming. We got down to the picnic area to have lunch and brunch. The day was hot and dry and perfectly breezy. A bunch of housewives showed up with their kids. So we got down there, put on the snorkel and the mask, and we went crawdad hunting by hand. Picked the biggest crawdad that I could catch, and I grabbed onto them, and I got bit real bad. They're quite strong and vicious. They've got big, nasty, strong pinchers. The kids really got a kick out of the crawdads that I was catching. The crawdads look like they would make some good New Orleans gumbo. It's a cold water mountain spring crawdad. So I put the crawdad out on land, and the crawdad seemed to know where the water is. Cruised out onto a back road and cruised up to a nice butte to film our campsite and had a few beers and had some dinner and hit the sack. Today we're going to pack up our mountain bike, cruise around this back butte here, check out the scene and all the Jeep roads that run all the way through this. One thing I noticed around here is there's a bunch of semi-precious agate that's cutting material for jewelry. We'll be looking for one of our best specimens. That looks like a promising specimen. We'll be dumping the mountain bike and we're going to hike along this fossilized canyon ridge overlooking the lakefront. I figured that while we were out swimming that I'd go crawdaddy hunting for our crawdaddy gumbo seafood dinner. Check them out. A bon appetit. And the moral of that story is don't play with your live food. Cook it and eat it. Every once in a while I find live ammo lying around. It's extremely dangerous and very difficult to dispose of properly. Kenny's daily dialogue. I met a whole bunch of people down there hanging out in their boats and people on the shore. having some brewskis, and having some brunch, and started hunting the crawdaddies. One thing I noticed about the crawdaddies is that when you have a lot of boats around and a lot of people, they scare the crawdaddy into deeper water. I found out that when I swam out to a spot away from the boaters and the people, there were more crawdaddies in more shallow water. There were no shortage of crawdaddies to eat. And I'm hunting the big giant crawdaddy, which is a big giant biting crustacean. I found out that it was a lot safer to get the crawdaddy out of the water, rip off its claws, and put the crawdaddy in your pocket. Inside the pot with the tomato soup and the black pearl rice was quite difficult because they were squirming and moving around and flipping tomato sauce everywhere. Not to mention trying to get out of the pot. Put the lid on and let those crawdaddies get down to a nice steeping, simmering boil. Chilling out, having another brewski. It's time to eat the crawdaddies. I noticed that the tail has a lot of meat in it. The claws we can do away with. The belly and the head and the eyes have a lot of good protein. It's a real messy meal. You gotta get your hands real dirty and you gotta get really in it. Thumbs up for our crawdaddy dinner. I think we'll try that again sometime. On our GPS grid, that's what we're gonna try to tackle next. There doesn't look like there's any shortage of public land. Seems to me you can hike around and just walk around Colorado, putz around for hours on end. We're at the summit. It's gonna be awesome. I just want you to know that the jig's up. The police are here. They're writing us a warning. They're not gonna give us a ticket. We're gonna do what we can, and we're gonna get out of here to more public, private land. The party's kinda over. And that's where we got busted. And the jig's up. The reason why we have to get out of Rocky Mountain National Park is because we got a warning ticket for pulling a freebie. So far, they've been very, very nice. Let's not push it. It's time for us to move on. And I don't know where we're going to wind up, but you'll be the first one to know. Our afternoon day hike up the falls was quite challenging. Huge landslide, an extreme amount of water, and a lot of large boulders piling down on the area, and let's not mention all the dead wood that was pushed out. Doesn't look like we're going up that road. So there was a guy standing up there near the truck. He was right near the tires and everything. If that tire would have blown off, it would have killed him. That truck's not going anywhere. What happened was the loader was lifting up, dumping off the dirt. The steel loader hit the power line. That actually gave enough voltage to heat up the air inside of his tires, and everything exploded like dynamite. Now that I think about it, I was planning on walking up there and checking out the scene. Worse yet, driving the truck out there and having the tire blow off at the truck. There's a whole bunch of mines out here, so we might be able to do some prospecting. The driver of that truck needs to see the ear doctor and the guy standing aside watching all the blast, and the electrical shock needs to see the ear doctor too. I'm hanging out here with my buddy Mike, and our explosion with the truck hitting the power line and everything put the whole town of
Netherland
out of power.
I was driving down to town, saw a bunch of traffic on the road, utility vehicles and such, taking up a large portion of the road. There was no electricity, no hot water, couldn't do dishes. All the stores were closing because the registers didn't work. And
Yeah, debit card
yeah,
ain't happening.
Yeah. So, yeah, they fixed it in like an hour or two. So I was able to finish my business. Stores opened back up.
And that's proof of the power outage that I saw over at the truck.
That's what caused it.
The mountain biking trail, totally awesome. Point of exploration. I rate Neverland is a super cool town with lots of cool people. Top of the morning to you. My buddy Mike here at the end of the road, caretaker, neighbor, gold, copper, and silver mine. Mike's been kind enough to let us on his property. We're going to be looking around on some tailing piles because Mike doesn't know what to look for. So I'm going to teach Mike, and I'm going to give Mike a trained eye on what to look for. Mike's also going to take us on some back forest roads around here, and we're going to get some spectacular views. Hopefully we'll find some nice rock specimens for Mike and me. Collapsed sinkhole. The structure's old, but the garbage is from the 80s. Mining inside the warehouse in the wintertime. Mascot of the project, Jim. My condolences to Jim. Jim was saved, but he never made it. Cool junk. Found Jim's shoe. Apparently, they were using some type of steam generator. Going in the steam generator house.
This is like where they would crush.
Hoist machine and cable. Hoist machine and cable.
Oh, here.
Convention vent. Mike's got a big job on his hands. Doesn't look too sanitary to me. 200-mile-an-hour winds during the wintertime around this place. It'll pick up this junk and throw it at you like a tornado. Storage for explosives. Somewhat safe storage for explosives. Pneumatic jackhammers. Old nails. No shortage of rock to look at here. Definitely no shortage of bonfires with Mike. Ventilation tube with a ladder in it for the mine. Okay, and then I'm gonna do, okay, man, you're gonna light it?
I didn't light it. Oh, it went out.
Hello down there! Playing with the big 4x4.
As I was trying to separate the little firecracker from the multiple firecrackers, it reminded me of a story when I was younger, probably 16, and my brother was like 18, and we went over to our friend's. His dad was a minister, and we went over to his church, and we were playing with fireworks, of course, because he was the minister's kid, and we were at the church, and we didn't have a lighter, so we would turn the stove on. The stove was pretty close to the door, and so we'd turn the electric coil on, so it'd be glowing hot, and then we'd light the firework from the coil and try and throw it out the door. This one time, it was amazing. It was like a sparkler, the kind that you throw down and it just sparkles and makes light and smoke and stuff. The preacher's kid went and lit it on the stove, threw it out the door, but he didn't know my brother was standing in the doorway. And it was just like bad timing. And he threw it in the oddest, it's just, there's not words for it. The fire sparkler went right into his right pocket, and it started going off in his pocket, and so he was screaming like bloody murder and trying to get it out of his pants, and ends up just ripping his pants off. It was great, and the sparkler was going the whole time.
Playing with the devil, baby. Playing with the devil, with the minister's kid.
Too close to the fire.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
You're welcome. These are the tires off of this huge international truck. And they've got these rims on it. They're outlawed now. They're either called Widowmaker or a suicide rim. There's this split in between them here, and there's a tool that'll snap it onto the rim. On the other side on the back of the tire here, the rim is naturally curved like that. It doesn't have any of these gaps. But on this side, it's got this fitting that fits on here. And so in the past, when they've been filling them, nowadays they have a cage that goes around the whole tire so that when they're filling them, if this pops off, it doesn't kill anybody, because in the past,
Slice.
they've taken off arms and legs and heads,
Torsos.
cut people in half.
Yeah.
So they don't make these anymore.
Mike's the caretaker of the old historical mine. Me and Mike hung out, talked about all the work he's got to do around the property. He's got a lot on his hands. Got on our mountain bikes, and Mike took us on a beautiful tour all through the back mountain range. Later on, towards the evening, I stopped on by. Me and Mike had a few cocktails. We putzed around the lot a little bit, had some dinner. Mike's a real cool guy. I have a real hard time finding people as cool as Mike is, and I hope to hang out with Mike again sometime. Mike's been a good, honest friend. Right here behind me is an old peat bog beaver pond. And what's in these ponds is there's huge gold nuggets, there's dinosaur bone, and there could even be a lot of petrified wood and other fascinating things. Since I've been talking to Mike about the glaciers and the runoff and all the ancient peat bog beaver ponds, I have a much greater understanding of exactly what's going on here. On a geological scale, I think it's quite fascinating, and I think Colorado has a lot more to offer than I could ever imagine. Let's go explore. I'm really happy that I met Mike over at the Old Historical Gold Mine. He really gave me some great ideas for the motion picture film. The motion picture film starts off as Cruising with Kenny cruising up a historical mine road. Kenny meets up with Mikey and his boss. Mikey and his boss are looking for funding to do a mining project under a old peat bog under a high altitude mountain range. They get all the funding that they need to start a state-of-the-art mining project. So they'll be blasting out the walls, taking all of that material, crushing it up, spraying it back on the walls again in concrete form, creating a safe passageway to explore underneath all of the high-altitude mountain ranges. They'll be finding extinct dinosaurs and fossils that are not on the fossil record at all, not to mention fossilized alien remains. The good news is that the military and the government doesn't know anything about their findings yet. They do find the remains of an alien spaceship. This new Genesis starts to unfold, smashing religion and scientific records to pieces. Fossilized alien artifacts and maps from the distant future are revealed. I would just like you and me, the viewer, to take some time off here and hypothesize on what I just said here. And I'm sure we can all create a great ending for this motion picture film. 12,500 feet here. County sheriff rolled in, waved, said hi, looked around, cruising around in his truck, and then how cool is that? Let's just say if you're parking your truck and you're not careful, you might just slide off a mountain. Proceeded through the facility and asked people around where the main road is. Once we got our first gleam of the peaks that gave us that extra energy. Smoky Colorado quartz, things got more interesting. Chalcopyrite, crystallized. I'm not sure about that, but we'll do some further research. Looked around for some other specimens, and it doesn't seem like there was any there. Air is getting real thin. I need a hit of oxygen. Started to rain and have potential threat again of lightning. Rollinsville is another cool little town. Mofat Road on the mountain bike.
1800s, who used his entire life savings to build the Moffat Tunnel when he died, and unfortunately died penniless. His entire family fortune was completely wiped out. Another gentleman, who I don't know his name, finished the tunnel. The last 50 feet of it ended up with all the profits from it, and it dramatically shortened the amount of time that it took the narrow gauge railroad to get from the western slope to the eastern side of the Rockies, this side of the Continental Divide. Also on top of that, up underneath the train tracks run some big water pipes, and that still to this day the Denver metro area gets its main water supply.
Thanks, Ken.
You bet. My pleasure.
Mikey gets challenged to a firecracker duel. They both take 10 paces. The choice of weapons are bottle rockets. What Mikey doesn't know is that he's dealing with a professional firecracker slinger. And the moral of my story is never take on a challenge and judge the book by the cover at the same time. Road, I call it Moffat. That was an extremely brutal ride. What really keeps me going? To ride more and see more. Pushing up more all the way to the summit. Top of the summit, there's a feeling of tranquility and peace. And always a surprise around every corner. Get out and go rock hounding. Topped off at 11,054 feet. Definitely popped out my tension pin on my derailleur and I lost the spring. That's okay, because I stay in high gear. Tip-top silver gold mine here, so let's get out. If you ever been to Las Vegas, that's what Central City is. Drinking, gambling, and women is not in my budget. The Oh My God Road is. The Oh My God Road, totally awesome, littered with gold mines and silver mines. And that's one thing we'll be doing on this road trip. We're going to be a total rock hound. Pretty sure that made Central City the Las Vegas of Colorado. Today's adventure was buying a cool rock. Now, I haven't bought a cool rock in a long time. We're going to challenge Mount Evans and the surrounding area. It's well over 14,000 feet. We'll be looking for mountain goat. Chalk it up for another summit that has to be challenged. Funnest parts of the day is going down. Leonard had a morning beer. Mop together, the highest point in Colorado. Clear morning with the clouds rolling in and pure morning sunlight. I believe we saw a herd of 50 elk looking for mountain goat, but really didn't spot him. Got to the top of the peak and a thunderstorm was rolling in. I was hoping we would get enough static electricity to stand all the women's hair on end. We had a picnic and we spent the rest of the day enjoying the high altitude mountain views. Chalk it up in the record books to getting rained on and held on again. Close to getting hit by lightning. Lots of cool people. Next point of exploration. Our next point of exploration. Good news about this camp spot is that there's no neighbors in back of me. There's no neighbors in front of me. There's no neighbors on the right side of me. And there's no neighbors on the left side of me. And there is a view, and that's the way we like it. Some roads that I checked out for us were a total bust. Why? Because they were privately owned properties. I did find a road here that's pretty cool, man. It gives us 2 roads and 2 good runs on the mountain bike. Point of exploration. And there's our 2 GPS grids that we are savoring. There's no shortage of awesome mountain range on our GPS grids. A little bit east of us is flat land. We're not going there. One thing I like about Colorado is that the weather is somewhat predictable. You wake up in the morning, it's sunny, it's clear. You can do your day hike till like 3-4 o'clock afternoon, and then you can expect the rain, the hail, and the thunderstorms to move in. Leonard bought a really cool 1972 trailer. He says it's been sitting in storage for quite some time, so it's pretty mint. Flat Top Mountain is like the biggest flat top mountain in Colorado. They got a whole bunch of lakes up there, and it's pretty awesome. Leonard says that in some lakes, they fly over with a water plane full of fish and water, and that's how they stock them. Leonard's really cool. He said when you're done with your daily adventure, stop on by the campsite and have a beer and hang out near the campfire with my friends. So we head up our dirt road even more. We were looking out over the mountaintops and canyons, 30 miles to 35 miles to 40-mile views. A lot of bad parkers. A lot of people who don't know how to park. We started up the mining road, turned into a real brutal portaging mission. Always keep in mind that at the end of the day, going down the trail is going to be totally awesome. Down in 13-something thousand feet, hopping out at the old mine. A lot of cool things to film up there. It's definitely turned into a living museum. No shortage of cool rock. Another summit has been challenged.
90 Isuzu Trooper, just 2.8 V6. Bought it probably about 2.5 years ago. Always like camo. This was red and white. It was a 2-piece truck. For the past 2.5 years, I just keep adding things to it. Instead of pulling a trailer up in the mountains, just throw everything on here and you're ready to go. Besides that, I get a lot of people stopping me at gas stations and stuff, taking pictures, and always asking me if I'm ready for Armageddon, but this is just about fun in life, man.
Right on, being the total outdoor vehicle.
Yeah, that's about it. Fun in life, buddy.
Yeah, right on.
That's about all I can say, really.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
Way cool vehicle, man. Way cool vehicle.
Thank you.
Okay. Woo. Instead of cruising the mountain bike or going on a day hike, I decided to spend a cool day rock hounding. Cool rock of the day. Some cool outcrops along Jones Pass Road. Let's just say there's a lot of cool mineral there. Layered schist, gemmy, pink garnet. We found pink feldspar and with chalcopyrite veins. I found another cool rock, but it hasn't been properly identified yet. Real cool people. We spent the night near the campfire drinking beer and BSing around. I've made a lot of cool friends in Colorado. Tomorrow we'll be checking out this destination to see what we can see. And that's where the next party's gonna start. If anything cool happens on that road, you'll be the first one to know. Rock slide, story time with Earl.
Groundwater was leaking underneath this large rock face up Manila Pass, 4.5 miles up, and the rock started to slip. We had a huge rock face that was moving up to 1 inch a day, so they had to close the pass down to try and do something about fixing this problem, because if this let loose, rocks would take out the Cabin Creek Reservoir Dam, and that would slam into the Clear Creek Reservoir Dam, and you'd have a huge catastrophe pouring into Georgetown.
Take out the whole town.
Well, it would take out the whole southern side of it. It also would threaten the electrical plant that's there, is one of the main focuses of the grid for the western United States.
Okay.
If that were damaged, it could interrupt electrical power from here to California. So it was a huge problem. They brought in top engineering firms in the country. Right now, they're trying to knock down the smaller pieces and stabilize the bigger pieces by shooting in concrete. We hope that this project's going to be finished by October. Since we've had a very wet year again this year, I don't know what's happening and what the underground water's doing. And if it's got those huge rocks sliding, we'll be in trouble.